Shalom and welcome to the Forefront Radio, where we uncover the hidden histories buried beneath centuries of lies and washing. Today, we bring you a short but powerful lesson on the Lisbon Massacre of 1506, a brutal event falsely claimed by modern European Jewish communities, when in fact, the truth is far deeper, darker, and deliberately erased. In our first segment, let's touch on the massacre of the New Christians. In the year 1506, the streets of Lisbon, Portugal, ran red with the blood of over 2,000 so called New Christians. These were not Polish converts, these were not Russian or German Ashkenazi Jews. These were Black and Afro-Sephardic Israelites, the real Jews of Spain and Portugal, who had been forcibly baptized and then violently targeted. And we're not guessing, folks. This is not hypotheses. According to a rare historical record found in Harvard University, a book called The Jews of Spain and Portugal by E.H. Lindo, it is clearly written that those murdered were referred to as Negroes. Let's pause for a moment and think about this. Negroes, 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 Blacks. When was any Ashkenazi Jew from Germany or Russia ever referred to as Negro in the 1500s? Never. So let's look up this historical book and let's verify if the information we're talking is true or if we're making it up. Because the most deplorable thing I saw online was that they compared the 1506 massacre of what happened to my ancestors and then turned around and said this parallels what happened in October 7th, 2023, where European converts to Judaism are fighting against Ishmaelite Arabs over a land that don't belong to neither of them. Let's read the history of the Jews of Spain and Portugal from the earliest times to their final expulsion from those kingdoms and their subsequent dispersal, with the complete translations of all the laws made respecting them during their long establishment in the Iberian Peninsula. The author is E.H. Lindo. Y'all see that right there, right? Let me type Control F, and we're going to type Harvard so you know exactly where this book came from. Notice what it says here. Harvard College, 1816 to 1845. Where was my ancestors between 1816 to 1854? I said 45, my bad, 54. We were in slavery and we were forced not to be able to read nor write. So it was European folks and European converts to Judaism that translated these documents. So now we're going to do a Google search and we're just going to type Negroes, Control F, Negro. And let's see where we can find in the statement Negro. Here it is. David Negro. That's one reference. David Negro. That's another reference. Saves the king by timely notice. Here's another one. David Negro. Now the last one right here, Don Judah was the high treasurer of the royal treasury, and Don David Negro. Wait a minute, you got Don Judah and Don Negro in the same paragraph? That's odd. Now the last reference is right here. In reference to the massacre that happened in 1504. Notice it says right here, Negroes highlighted here. So we're going to read up just a little bit so we can get a little bit of context. So that way nobody could say, oh, Forefront, you're making it up. Right here. In Portugal, that merciless tribunal had not yet been established when upwards of 2,000 of the forced converts were murdered and plundered by the mob of Lisbon, Portugal, on Easter Sunday. Oh, it was a celebration. The 19th of April, 1506. In the monastery of St. Domingo, there was a celebrated chapel called Jesus's Chapel. On the altar was a crucifix having a bit of red glass to represent the wound in the side. The monks, to delude the ignorant populace, caused the candle to be cast its light through the glass, which they claim to be a miracle. A new Christian who perceived the imposture. Now, a new Christian is a Jew that was forcibly converted to Catholicism, for those that don't know, and saw that the reflection of the light proceeded from the situation of the candle, incautiously made the remark, whereupon they dragged him by the hair from the church, killed him, and burnt his corpse. While one monk was inveighing from the pulpit, two other Dominicans sallied forth with crucifixes in their hands, exclaiming, "Heresy, heresy," and offering 100 days' indulgence to every Christian who should kill a Jew or anyone who conformed to Judaism. They soon collected a mob, which was increased by a number of Dutch and Danish sailors who landed from their vessels then lying in the Tagus. They slew and mangled their victims, casting many while yet living into the fires. The Negroes, what? The Negroes, what does this book say? The Negroes, what does this book say? The Negroes and vilest rabble had kindled at the church doors, to which they kept constantly adding fuel. And on Monday, the numbers of the mobs were considerably augmented from the neighboring villages, and massacre and butchery of the new Christians were continued. Their houses were broken up, whole families were murdered. The merciless wretches dashed out of the brains of infants against the walls. Pregnant women were thrown from the windows on the pikes of those below. Women were violated and virgins ravished. Such were the horrors committed in the capital of Portugal that day. That's strange. Question for the critical thinker. Question for the critical thinker. Those that got a brain to think, brain cells moving around in your head. When has any Ashkenazi Jew from Germany or Russia ever been referred to as Negroes in the 1500s? Never. So, let's talk about Black Jews. Let's talk about the stolen identity and erasure of the Jews. The truth will set you free. You see, these blacks who are no longer called Jews were the descendants of the original Israelites, the biblical Israelites, who had lived in the Iberian Peninsula for centuries. They had kept the Torah, they had kept the commandments, until they were forced under the sword to convert to Christianity or perish. But even then, forced conversion was not enough. The Lisbon Massacre was incited by Catholic fanatics and priests who claimed that the new Christians had blasphemed a so-called miracle. The crowd was riled up. They burned, beat, and slaughtered thousands of our people, men, women, and children, in public squares. What is that parallel to? That parallels to what we experience in the Americas, where church services were held, and right afterwards in public arenas, they would unalive our people as strange fruit on trees. And who were these victims? Again, the book says Negroes, 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 not Polish, not Khazar, not Ukrainian, not Russian, not Ashkenazis. The last subject we'll touch on is slavery and prophecy. The persecution didn't end there. In E.H. Lindo's document that we just read from Harvard University College, it specifies that the Jews who refused to convert were sent into perpetual slavery. Perpetual slavery. Ask yourself a question. Did this perpetual slavery ever fall upon Germanic or Russian converts to Judaism? The answer is no. The answer is no. So, let's see, does this book mention a group of people that were placed into slavery? And they say that this person was supposed to go under edict by the Christians into perpetual slavery. Let's find out. That's why it's very important to look up history, because once you know the truth will make you free from the lies. Notice right here on the document, it states right here, it says, not only wishes to avenge the insult offered to the Christ cross, but to prevent by severity the ruin they had savagely engaged to bring on his country and people, that the perjurers themselves and their posterity, meaning their children, be deprived of all their property and possessions, the same being confiscated to the treasury, national treasury, that they be deprived of their homes in all provinces of Spain, and be subjected to perpetual slavery under those he may assign them to. Wait a second. Hold on a minute. Critical thinking hats. Let's put the critical thinking hats back on. Let's ask a critical question. Perpetual slavery. We know Spain and Portugal initiated the transatlantic slave trade against our ancestors. Did this ever fall upon Germanic or Russian converts to Judaism? No. But it did happen to Black Jews that they call now today in a mocking tone, you some Black Hebrew Israelites. Y'all think y'all the people of the Bible. When in reality we are. Those who were expelled, enslaved, and scattered during the transatlantic slave trade fulfilled the curses of Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, and there you will be sold unto your enemies for slave men and slave women. White Europeans that converted have never lived out that prophecy. But the descendants of Black Iberian Hebrews, many of whom now live in the Americas, the Caribbean islands, and across Africa, they've experienced this tragedy. So let this be known to any liar. The Lisbon Massacre of 1506 was not European Ashkenazi tragedy. It was a Black Israelite Holocaust. Our ancestors, our blood, our pain. Let the lies fall to the ground and let the truth rise. Get your hands on the book. Verify it for yourself. Look it up. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice. I gave you the book. The book is called The Jews of Spain and Portugal by E.H. Lindo, provided by Harvard College. You can obtain the book for free online. Just type The Jews of Spain and Portugal and do a Control F find to look up exactly what I just stated and see it for yourself. The pages speak louder than any historian with an agenda. This is the Forefront Radio. We will never stop bringing truth to the surface. If you want to support our mission and our future broadcast on the Forefront Radio via PayPal, please contribute at paypal.me/Aphiel Levi, that's spelled APHIEL Levi, or donate via Cash App at APHIEL Levi. Stay tuned, stay awake to righteousness and sin not, and stay at the forefront. Thank you so much for listening. Peace to the 12.